Centenary. One day in early summer, the Fat Controller called a meeting of the engines. He announced, "Ventured Thomas," agreed the Fat Controller. He paused. He went on, squeaked Percy, and then hoped the Fat Controller hadn't heard him. But he had, explained the Fat Controller. Sometime later, the Fat Controller spoke to James. He said, James puffed off proudly. He felt even prouder when he began the journey back to the big station with the crate safely on a truck. But as James had passed through Henry's tunnel, there was a rumble and an enormous crash. James's driver looked back in alarm. Part of the tunnel had collapsed behind them. The railway to the outside was completely cut off. James stopped at the next signal box and his driver told the signalman what had happened. Later, the Fat Controller sent Donald, Douglas and Henry to help repair the tunnel, but until it was mended, no trains could reach the other railway from the island of Sodor, pointed out Gordon. On Thomas's branch line, the engines were worried too, said Thomas, soothed his driver. The Fat Controller gave orders to carry on as usual, but Gordon's trains to the other railway had to stop at the workstation. Bertie brought in passengers, but Gordon complained that it wasn't the same. Meanwhile, Percy had a smaller problem. He asked Toby one day. Toby was puzzled. He asked, "Explained, Percy," said Percy sadly. Thomas, listening nearby, laughed. He chuckled. Percy cheered up at once. He said, "Put in Toby." A few days later, the Fat Controller announced that the tunnel had been mended. The inspectors worked through the night on their safety checks, and the first train allowed through was Pip and Emma. At the big station, the bust of the thin clergyman, beneath a silk cover, was ready. The engines waited anxiously. At last, Pip and Emma arrived, and the first person off the train was a prince. The Fat Controller greeted him, and after a short speech, the prince pulled a cord. The silk cover fell to the ground, revealing a perfect likeness of the thin clergyman. Said the prince, "The end."